everyone, this is Ben with BathroomBrewsMTG. In honor of Phyrexian All Will Be One releasing soon, and finally getting the new printing of Elish, I'm going to rank the original 5 Praetors and their 5 new printings for EDH. I'm going to be looking at power level, how much hate the card might bring you, and their board impact. Also, I will not be covering Ebon Praetor, Sanguine Praetor, or Gix Yawgmoth Praetor. I'm just going to be looking at the original cycle and the new cycle. If you disagree with anything on this list, let me know why in the comment section below. Okay, let's get into it. At number 10 is Shoulder the Whispering One. She's a 7 mana 6/6 that lets you return a target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield at the beginning of your upkeep, and forces other players to sacrifice a creature during their upkeep. She's just way too slow for EDH. It's basically 7 mana to remove each opponent's worst creature, and you might get to reanimate something. Maybe. Even if you cheat her out by using reanimation, she'll put a target on your back and she won't even reanimate another creature. Just reanimate the better thing. She also has 0 board impact when she comes out. For 7 mana, I can play cards like Avenger of Zendikar, which has immediate board impact, or some of the other Praetors I have higher on this list. But I don't want to give anything away. Avoid cards like this, like some weirdos avoid pineapple on pizza. If you don't like pineapple on pizza, I disagree with you, but that's for another video. Number 9 is Jin-Gitaxias Core Auger. Oh geez, where do I begin? 10 mana for a 5/4 with Flash, at the end of your turn, draw 7, and each opponent's hand size is reduced by 7. The only reason this card isn't number 10 is because it does draw you 7 cards. Oh, but it doesn't even give you the benefit of having no hand size. Also, players generally don't like having their hands ripped away, and this effect doesn't happen until the cleanup step. While yes, it does have Flash, you'd only hose 1 person potentially, and you'd have to hold up either 10 mana or an instant speed reanimation effect, such as Necromancy. Then you're immediately made into the archenemy, so you have to be prepared to win that next turn. The board impact this card has for 10 mana just isn't there, and even then the card draw isn't quite as good. There are a number of other cards you can play that draw you 7 cards for 10 or less mana. Number 8 is Carrotic Freighter. I'd like the record to show, I do love this card. I think it's a cute effect that generally won't be hated off the table. However, it is weak. So you might be thinking why put it above the other 2 Praetors. I have a few reasons. First, it only costs 5 mana and does have haste, so it's a lot more reasonable to play, and second, I don't think this card will draw you a ton of hate. It's great in decks that can abuse playing cards from exile or wants cards in exile, like Prosper Tomebound, Faldor, or Belborga, and it's just okay in others. I wouldn't run this in every Red X deck, but I'd definitely jam it in a few just to see how it performs. Overall, I love this card, but just can't justify playing it all that much. Urbrask the Hidden comes in at number 7. Now this card and my number 6 pick were neck and neck. Urbrask the Hidden gives your creatures haste and has creatures our opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Thankfully, this card only costs 5 mana, and does essentially have haste. Sadly, it doesn't have the board impact for me to rate it much higher. The creatures entering tapped is more of a meta call than anything in my opinion. In higher power games, I don't know how much having creatures enter tapped will really matter, and in more battlecruiser metas, it probably will. The haste is nice if you're playing big threats, but red does have better haste enablers. Also, this is far and away the cheapest Praetor dollar-wise too, so if you want to play a Praetor in your deck, pick this one up. Overall, I'm just not impressed with this card in relation to the other Praetors. However, if you like it, play it. EDH is a casual format, have fun with it. Vorinclex Voice of Hunger is at number 6. This 8 mana 7/6 with Trample lets you tap lands for 1 additional mana of any type that land produced. And whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land does an untap during its controller's next untap step. As I said before, it was pretty close between this and Urbrask, but Vorinclex edges it out for one simple reason. It's green. Green really shouldn't have any issues ramping to 8 mana by turn 4 or 5, and the fact that this lets you tap whatever untapped lands you have for more mana is just worth it in my book. This card does garner a ton of hate, which is why it was almost number 7, but the potential explosiveness leaves it at number 6 for me. You also slow down the person who uses removal on this, since those lands won't untap during their next turn. But if you're going to drop this beefcake, A, be prepared to get a lot of hate, B, have protection in hand, and C, be in a position to win the game as soon as possible. In the number 5 spot, we have Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. This is a magic card. 7 mana 5/5 that lets you copy the first artifact, instant, or sorcery spell you cast once each turn, and lets you pick new copies for the target, and counters the first artifact, instant, or sorcery spell played by any opponent. Quick rules note, the counter effect only hits one player, not each player once. The mana cost in my opinion isn't a huge drawback, especially since you'll be playing them in artifact-based decks most likely, and those tend to ramp pretty hard. Also, there are a lot of ways in blue to play cards at instant speed to abuse the copy effect on each player's turn. Leyline of Anticipation, Shimmermere, and Urza's Battlethopter are the first 3 that come to mind. And with the abundance of 0-drop artifacts, even if you tap out to play this, you can still cast cards like Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bauble, or Chrome Mox and get additional copies of them. Or if you want to be really mean, you can double up Time Warp, Time Stretch, or Expropriate. Much like the other Praetors on this list, you need to be in a position to close out the game quickly or get as much value as possible before this card gets removed. Number 4 is Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. This is a 6-mana 6/6 with Trample and Haste, and doubles the counters you'd put on permanents or players, and has the amounts of counters that your opponents would put on permanents or players, rounded down of course. Oh boy, do I love this card. This is a card I'd actually play over something like Doubling Season in a Super Friends deck, because A, it's cheaper dollar-wise, and B, in a pinch, it can block your walkers. In a Counter Matters deck, this is probably your best card. And notice how it says counters on a player? This means you can double up on experience counters and infect counters. You definitely need to build around this card for it to be good, and its second effect will only hurt very specific decks, but I think the juice is worth the squeeze for old Clexy here. Also, its stats and mana cost are the same as Colossal Dreadmaw, which is a cute fact. Number 3 is the very recently spoiled and controversial Elish Norn Mother of Machines. It's Mom Harmonicon, doubling up on your enter the battlefield triggers, including those from lands, which is new for white, and turning off your opponent's ETBs. This could possibly be my number 2, but since it isn't out yet, this rating is pure speculation. Blink decks are known to be powerful, especially with a commander like Preston the Vanquisher being released recently. I'm not sure I'd want to run this card as the commander, but it is great in the 99. I'll definitely be picking one up for my Hoffrey Ghostforge deck. If you think this card's going to be a problem in the format, please just run more creature removal or counter magic. In fact, do that anyways. Removal is good. Alright, back to the topic at hand. Blink decks aren't the only ones who will enjoy this card, but playing it in something like Hate Bears lets you asymmetrically tax your opponents. We'll see how much play she really gets and how salty she makes people, but for now, she's number 3. Number 2 is a 60 card Fora format all-star, Shoulder the Apocalypse. There's a huge reason why I have her at number 2. She's just good. Her and the number 1 card I think are the only 2 odd run in almost every deck of their colors. Her lose 2 life trigger is based on opponents drawing cards, not you, and there tends to be a lot of card draw in a game of Commander. It is important to note that this is life loss and not damage, so you can't give her Infect or Lifelink to do some cheese stuff. But she does combo well with Exquisite Blood or Veto. And while she doesn't have a huge impact on the board, dropping her early doesn't require any setup, and she's the cheapest Praetors, mana value-wise, on the list. If I had a copy, she'd be jammed into every deck with Black I own, just because of the value she can generate. If you build around her, she's even better, but I don't think it's necessary. And if you've been keeping track, my number 1 pick is Elish Norn Grand Cenobite. She does something that none of the other Praetors really do all that well. Have an immediate and devastating impact when she comes into play. Oftentimes, this card's a board wipe, a buff, or even a winning condition all on its own. Clearing out pesky blockers, buffing the heck out of your own creatures, and making combat a breeze. Even if someone removes her right away, oftentimes the damage is already done. And her being 7 mana in white isn't the issue it once was thanks to Treasure. Also, a little fun fact, she's tied with Old Urbrask for the lowest word count text box of all the Praetors at 13 words. See Wizards, more text doesn't always equal good. And with that, thanks for watching. Special thanks to my patrons for their support, and if you'd like to join them in supporting the channel, you can find my Patreon link in the video description below. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications when all my videos go live. As always, this has been Ben with BathroomBrewsMTG, and remember, always wash your hands.